Hello everyone, this is GT Time. I'm your moderator, Kyle Bossman, and joining us as always is our uniquely talented and knowledgeable panel, including Brandon Jones.
Who's back?
Daniel Bloodworth.
Hi.
And sitting in the super seat, Matt Blair.
I don't know what I'm doing here.
So I want to say something. Normally that's the guest seat. I feel like that's not inclusive, and so I want to call it the super seat. So like it's an honor to be in that seat. Basically, I don't want to call Matt.
Who would want to be a guest on
He's
this
not
show?
a guest. Like he's just as much a GT Time as anyone. You know what I mean?
So am I the first
So
one
how
to
do
be
you
super?
treat your
Yes.
guests then, Kyle?
Maybe someday we'll have an actual guest, but I don't.
Oh, thanks.
I don't consider. Oh my god. Oh, what am I doing? Matt Blair, we've been doing a thing where anyone who sits in the super seat explains how they have come to GameTrailers, how they have come to this position where you are at now. And I'm curious how you have come to GameTrailers.
Oh, geez. I started, 6 years ago? Back at Viacom, in the old Viacom days. Started out doing video compression only. So I was part of the tech
What had
team.
you been doing before that?
Before that, I was just doing random PA jobs and stuff like that around LA. Did a little bit of testing, worked for Activision for a few months, and then
Oh yeah, we share that in
landed here.
common. We were both
Yes, we were there at the
QA
same time,
Activision.
actually, but we
Yeah.
didn't know that until, this year.
Years later, yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, and then just kind of crawled my way around the depths of GT, and here we are today.
No, what do you mean here we are? What? Explain me, you're crawling. What do you mean crawling around the depths of GT? So the job was for what?
Video compression and tech work and stuff like that. So basically site maintenance and things like that.
What made you qualified for that?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I went to school for broadcast and cinematic arts and just came in thinking, hey, we'll do some video stuff and I'll learn the digital side. And then turns out I liked it, so I stayed. Mm-hmm. And so nowadays it's even more difficult than ever to explain my job. Kind of have my hand in all the cookie jars.
Hold on a second though. Cinematic arts is what you went to school for?
Yes.
When are you going to do that? When are you going to do some cinematic arts?
That's a good question.
Do you still hold that in your heart? Do you
Yes,
still? Okay.
absolutely. I mean, every time I criticize Final Bosman when we post a new episode,
It's because of that.
you know what I'm talking about?
All right, yeah, there you have it. Welcome everybody. Glad to have you here, but let's do some corrections. Start corrections music. Boy, we have a doozy. I'm gonna try to get through these as fast as possible.
Well, I'll have to interject on one of them. but-
Okay, absolutely. First is mine. I said Telltale because of Lego games. That's TT Games, formerly Traveler's Tales,
Right.
but now they're called TT Games.
God, I
But-
leave for a week and
Oh my God. Okay, so then
Depends on what part of the fine print you read, actually. Traveler's Tales is still in some of it.
that's still active.
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay. PCs are super cheap to build and will always be better than consoles in every conceivable aspect. I'm just covering a lot of corrections with that one. That's the
Right.
gorilla.
except games you can't play.
Yeah.
But,
Don't
no,
start
I-
Brandon, don't start it.
Except games that aren't ever released on PC.
No, PCs are better, okay? We all know PCs are better.
Except for this that
Well, the
super
main
cool game
thing-
you should
the main
probably
thing-
check out.
The main thing people were pointing out was my comment about the graphics card cost.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of those things where I was looking at the graphics card I would be buying rather than what the average person because people buy whatever they can and get by with it, right?
So you've been shopping is what you're saying.
I've been looking, and it's and I've been hearing all this crap about the 970, and I'm like, okay, well the 970 just seems like it's cheaper because they cut corners, and it doesn't sound like that's what I would actually want to buy anyways. Although it's funny because the 970 is right at that 350 range. But anyways, the point is that I'm in a weirder, different position because of my job, and I wouldn't be getting the cheaper thing just to get by. I need to get the higher end thing. And
You want The
whatever.
Witcher to look as good as it can.
Yeah.
Got it.
You
So
definitely-
there's a clarification. That was a clarification.
Is that a good looking game, The Witcher?
Yeah.
Along with his PC lines, Huber stated that there's no huge PC exclusives, which was incorrect, and we should have corrected him there. There's Elite Dangerous,
Yeah,
there's
a
Civ Beyond
ridiculous amount of things. I don't even know
Star
how they got by.
Citizen. Overwatch for now is PC exclusive.
World of Warcraft.
Yeah, so there's Huber.
StarCraft.
There's plenty. I'm sorry.
Probably
A couple of people playing that
Yeah,
game.
hundreds.
StarCraft. We should have stopped him.
yeah.
We should have said, actually, hold on. But we didn't, so that had to fly. We mentioned a quote about Scalebound. So it was Ken Lobb, he's creative director at Microsoft Studios, or one of them anyway, said that it has the potential to be game of all time.
The man who brought us Killer Instinct.
Yep. Says Scalebound could be game of all time.
What game doesn't have the potential?
I'd say there's a lot of games that are not going to be game of all time, even great games. Batman is going to be a sick game. It's not going to be game of all time. There's no way.
I don't think anybody can say their own game will be game of all time.
Yeah.
Unless you're
fair-
Hideo Kojima, and not because Hideo Kojima makes the games of all time, although Metal Gear Solid, man, that first one. But
Right.
he's the kind of person you're like, Kojima,
But-
I love you, man.
But it's not
like
Ken
this
Lob's
guy,
thing. I mean, Ken Lob's job is basically to go out and find the games that he thinks are going to be great, and that's how he got GoldenEye, and that's how he got Killer Instinct. And so, I mean, you know, it's
You
like
trust his word is what you're saying. You say
I don't.
maybe it could
no,
be game
I mean,
of all time.
he's overhyping it.
The
for
other
sure.
part of his job is figuring out how to sell these games
Yeah.
that he's finding.
But it is platinum, and that in itself, you know, gives us some confidence. But we just don't know what the crap the game is yet. So
Yeah, that's a good quote anyway. First Tomb Raider, originally released and developed for Sega Saturn.
Crazy, yeah.
Isn't that crazy? It released like a month earlier on Sega Saturn, but we kind of excluded that from our conversation. So that's a clarification.
compared to the PC or the PlayStation?
PC and PlayStation about the same time.
Oh, okay.
Tuscany is a region, not a city.
Yeah, we knew that, right?
Yeah, we did, but clarification.
Okay.
Remember how
like, I hope we knew that.
I said the 2 appeared randomly, the Metal Gear Rising 2? I should have listened to clearer. So what's happening in the order is the guy saying, like, drop zone entering in 3, 2, and right when he says 2, the 2 appears on screen.
Oh, so definitely more intentional then.
Yes, definitely more intentional, but still
Can I
very,
listen
very
to that,
strange.
but sound off weird.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. Yeah, I have no idea how to pick up on that. I think I just tune out of the order dialogue. Here's another correction. This one I like a lot. This is from Kevboard. About Quantum Break, they said it a couple of times now. There is no TV show. There are what are basically 20 or so minute live action cutscenes in between chapters of the game. They are in the style of a TV show, and you can even make choices in them which change the story. This is at least what Sam Lake said at Gamescom, I think. And all of those TV show-esque episodes are on the disc.
Totally didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Completely my bad. Sorry.
What's funny
That's
is
awesome.
like,
Thank you for telling us that.
yeah. What's funny is like, I think that just not a lot of us are like reading about Quantum Break. You know, that's why we didn't
But
know
Huber
that.
was on the show, and he was.
I bet if we asked Huber what the TV show is right now, he would not. Well, that's not fair to bet. Okay. Oh, my last. I really love these corrections. This happened from. I missed the other guy's name. So talking about what was it called? Apex. And I said that they had to move menus because someone pulled the fire alarm. Had some clarifications about that. The fire alarm went off because someone put a towel on a sprinkler in their room.
Did you actually research this, or you just like
No,
taking
this is.
their word for
I
it?
should cite these people particularly. This one's from RHD16, and then Freezy below that says he put a towel on the sprinkler because they were smoking joints in the room and thought that the towel would prevent the thing from going off. So all I have is their hearsay. But imagine this whole venue had to move because some kids were putting a towel on a sprinkler because they were smoking joints.
It seems legit.
Thank you, Freezy and RHD. Thanks for clarifying those things. And now we can end corrections music. That has to be a record.
Yeah, that was a long one.
That was a lot.
And I wanted to talk a little bit more about Quantum Break actually, but then I was like, that music.
Okay, let's do it now then.
Well, I just think you advertise that. You
Oh,
say
absolutely.
you clarify. You know, for a second I'm like, oh God, I should look that up. And then it's like, no, you told us that was a TV show. Like you went out and specifically were like, hey, here's this clear CG boat crashing into this bridge. Now here's this show. This is a totally separate thing. And like they're gonna mix together. And then it's like, okay, now to talk about more of the gameplay, and it's like, wait, no, I mean, slowing time, I got it. We can get into that more, but what are you talking about? Like, there's not a ton of games that have done that, you know? And
I also
just
feel like
that's
maybe
weird.
part of the blame could lie in some misleading headlines or titles somewhere.
Sure.
Right? I mean, how we're getting this information.
Yeah.
That's why
that's to blame too.
That's why you have to be so clear, I think. When you're at E3, you have to be so clear because there are hundreds of headlines coming out of everything you say.
Yeah.
I
be
think you're
excited
right.
about it.
Yeah.
You know, like be like, you know, chomping at the bit to like, I can't wait to make videos to explain like how we're doing this stuff instead of like, oh yeah, in that one interview and just in passing, he was like, yeah, it's not really a TV show. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
That's what you should be talking about.
Yeah, you should have known this the whole time. It's
Right.
I've never been a TV show. Come on, these are 20-minute cutscenes. Speaking of clear headlines, we have a very clear one to start off the show this week. Sonic Boom is the worst-selling Sonic game of all time.
Of all time.
Main series Sonic games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, main series? Now that you just confused the whole thing.
Well, so we're not counting like Sonic Spinball. For some reason, Sonic Boom is considered amongst like Sonic Unleashed. You know what I mean? Like that level of Sonic.
Right.
Boom.
Does that surprise anybody? I'm surprised that it sold 490,000.
That's actually, yeah. I mean, when you say it that way,
And here's the thing: it sold 490,000 across Wii U and 3DS.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
they
including.
combined them.
They combined those.
worldwide or North America?
Worldwide.
Well,
Less than 500,000 on 2 platforms worldwide.
Yeah.
Well, that just means that
One of them
not
cost
getting us review
$40.
copies in time didn't work.
No, what does that mean? You have to
get that
explain. You have to
together.
explain that what that
We
means.
got the review copy late, and then I had to play catch up to get the review done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm in that position, I know I got a stinker. I'm not excited to send out my stinker to reviewers.
Yeah, probably like lessen the blow.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like,
Yikes.
But I do want to talk about that. Is this worth being sad about? Is it worth being
terrible
like,
game,
oh,
no.
that's a shame? It is a terrible game, right?
yeah. I mean, now what I'm worried about is Sega's talk about moving away from console. Like, if that factors into things, they're idiots.
Right.
You made a bad game.
And you know,
Don't put that bad game as a trend on what gamers are doing.
and you know what's funny? You know, I don't like saying the word bad game, but this one is just broken.
Yeah.
It's a broken game. Bloodworth, you reviewed it.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to Matt Blair and to Brandon what is so wrong with this game.
There are many things wrong with the game, but for one, like, you can't even walk through an area without it starting to like hitch and like the characters behind you moving back and forth. And then when we were playing multiplayer, and like you were walking
Oh my
around and it was
God.
in this tug of war thing, and then it just like dragged you under the world, and then you dropped through it.
Oh yeah, it's got a real effed up system
It's
for
very
like who gets to
incomplete.
be a leader and who teleports to where, and so it just eventually just teleported me under the map.
The characters are constantly calling out what you're supposed to do next, even when you're already doing it.
Yeah, that's not even a tech issue. That was just a
Yeah.
design issue, isn't
And
it?
then like the world, like that same city, there's nobody in it. There's the mayor of nobody. You know, it's like, okay, you go talk to the mayor,
Nowhere
but
man.
there's nobody living in this town. What are you the mayor of?
Yeah.
He wants to get he wants
feels
your
like-
help getting votes.
It feels like this game is so bad you can't even articulate properly how bad it is.
It's exactly that kind of thing. And
I did though.
You
the review's
did.
on the site. You can watch it. It's a 3 point something. I forget what I gave it exactly.
Here's the thing: we love video games. We love them. I don't like celebrating a loss, but I think this is something we're celebrating. I think it's worth saying, good, this is the worst one. It's the worst game you made.
Yeah.
It's the worst game you put in a box and had people go buy.
Well,
Like,
I think
good.
too, it's like you can't just keep selling bad Sonic games. Like they've gotten by with so many that they kept selling despite being bad.
Oh, hold on.
And now it caught up to
No,
them.
now we got to do another correction. Bonus corrections music. Everyone wanted us to know that Sonic Generations is really good. End corrections music. We weren't giving Sonic Generations enough credit last week, apparently.
Okay.
That's not even a correction. That's just an oversight, I guess.
It's a correction.
Okay.
I thought we had mentioned it, maybe not.
Okay. We didn't. We talked about Unleashed, which is the good one.
Wow.
Isn't that the werewolf one?
Half of a good
Where
one.
Hog one,
Where Hog
Brandon
one, sorry.
Jones.
Sonic just never, he's like one of those last franchises that just never figured out anything past his original programming. You know, like never, like every other franchise, you think about like Resident Evil or, you know, like Metal Gear or Halo or like these other series that like started out doing something and then, well, Halo's probably a bad example, but like started out doing something a long time ago, 80s or 90s, and then clearly like the whole, you know, industry shifted in a different direction and then we're just like, I can't figure it out. You know, and like, it's just, and the thing that's crazy is that we keep getting tons of Sonic games. You
Yeah.
know, there's just like tons, like Skies of Arcadia, just tons of like amazing games that was just like, oh, it was so simple what this series could do to adapt to 3D. And then just like, nope.
So
But
what we're
just for some
saying-
reason, like,
What we're saying really is that they should take a lesson from the other franchises that are still successful and not release 2 games every year and maybe one every 2 years or 5 years. Take some time and figure out what to do with your franchise instead of just spitting out a ton of garbage.
But the problem I have is every time, even especially with the bad ones, every time they show you this game, they have one level that they know is awesome. And everyone thinks, oh, this game's going to be good.
You know, like Lost Worlds, you mean?
Right.
Sure.
And then the whole game comes out, and that's the only good level. Like, why didn't you make more good levels.
I think because it would have been too much
I don't
money.
know what.
It would have
what's going
taken
on.
too long, and it would have cost too much money to make the whole game good. Isn't that sad? To like make a good game just costs too much money these days.
Brandon Beck, I believe hopefully getting his last name correct, who's the CEO of one of the heads of Riot, did the first speech at DICE this year, last week, and it was a great speech because he talked about, he's like, League of Legends is this huge IP, I would give it to you if I could keep the people I work with. He's like, they are way more important to me than this IP that's supposedly worth so much money. And I was like just thinking about that, reminded of it, and it's like that's exactly the position Sega's in. Like Sonic has no worth to them. It doesn't mean anything. You know, it's like first and foremost, if they're starting like a Sonic project, it's like, well, it's Sonic, so we got that taken care of. And it's like that's just not a gift to you anymore. Like all you're doing is just making us sad. Should we be sad about this? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we should be sad that like there's not some secret private team that's doing something like, you know, they did with Batman with Arkham Asylum, where it's like, let's just completely wipe the board clean and just make a fun game first and foremost. If it has a great story in it, awesome. If we can turn it into a TV show, great. But like, because that TV show, the whole like package deal where it's like you got the show, we might make a movie,
We got some
have all this, like,
toys,
new
baby, we
characters,
got
all that
toys.
stuff. You do that after you finally have a huge game. You basically like hold that in the wings. It's like we'd love to do this. We'd love to franchise Sonic, but we got to wait until we do, until we have an amazing game that we bring all the fans back and create that, you know, that love that everybody has for Sonic. That we got like the core audience, we got the kids, we got everybody. And the fact that they didn't, that it's just like, what was the game we got before Boom? Like, oh,
That was Lost
Heroes. Or what was the one?
It was
what
Lost
was the
Worlds.
Beehive that we
It was
played
Lost
E3?
Worlds. Yeah.
Lost Worlds?
Yeah.
Lost World, yeah.
Yeah. Lost World or Lost Worlds?
I think it was just World.
Oh, okay.
We were like going down a pipe, and you can just move it to the left and the
yep,
right,
yep,
and
yep.
keep going forward. And like, oh,
Yeah,
it's
that
kind
was-
of a fun idea, but just
Yeah.
like didn't do it. So they're like, oh, clearly time to do a huge media money dump on Sonic. And so like that's like, okay, obviously you don't care. Obviously like the people that are working on it and what they're producing, the systems that they're doing, and like their whole mantra about like, how do we get this back to the Genesis? How do we figure out like, oh man, that thrill, like this is so much fun,
Yeah, those people are gone.
right?
Those Genesis, those.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying get those people back,
Yeah.
but get people in there that like have that be the focus, and that just is never ever going to be the focus with a Sonic game.
So, talking about some numbers that actually do make me sad. Sega also reported that Alien Isolation sold 1.7 million copies. This was disappointing to them. That was not enough. An interesting thing is that in January, it was reported that it had sold 1 million copies, sold through. And in this article about the 1.7, IGN had a really cute comment. It was, considering the company only just announced it's past the 1 million mark, it seems that that was either a delayed message or sales have picked up. IGN, I got to deliver some bad news to you. The 1.7 is shipped, and the 1 million was sold through. Like poor IGN
that
out there
what
just
it-
like, oh, they sold another 700,000 in 1 month. Like, no, that's not what happened.
Is that what the press release said? The 1 million?
Yes. Back then it said these are sold through. It confirmed that. But these new numbers are not confirmed either way. So it's you have to assume it's sold.
Sold through
Shit.
is a weird thing to calculate. But
Because
once you've sold them to retailers, like I don't know how you get the information of what happened, other than the ones that report to NPD or whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe it was an NPD thing.
Maybe it was an NPT thing in January. That could be. Anyway, yeah, they confirmed that those numbers were sold through. That 1 million people owned the game. And probably not NPD because I bet that includes like people buying it on Steam. Or it has to.
But I mean, the NPD is probably like what allowed them to go over that.
Regardless, these are astronomical numbers that are disappointing to Sega. Even a 1 million is just like, man, we really expected it to do better. So,
Well,
is this
they
a
should be
failure?
used to it by now.
Sorry?
No, they should be used to it by now. Spending way too much money on a franchise that doesn't sell enough.
That's my question.
kind of the Sega way.
Oh my gosh.
No, think about it.
Is this their failure or is it our failure for not buying enough of that game?
They keep doing it over and over again. Like, Alien Isolation had a lot of buzz around it. From
did.
us even. And, when we finally get to play it and we review it and take it seriously, it turns out that it's not all that great, but it was okay.
Well, it's a very split opinion. I mean, it's
Yeah.
up for a ton of BAFTAs, so.
Yeah, and, it's good in some ways and bad in some other ways, and maybe it's just not a great fit for everyone. But they clearly, when they say that number is disappointing, they clearly mean that they spent way too much money on making it happen.
You're right. That is what that that means. Is we did not hit.
And
what our
let's
budget
not
was.
forget that it's coming off the back of like one of the worst Alien games, and that reputation, I'm sure.
Colonial Marines.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure there are a lot of people that were just like, I'm gonna wait for this to drop to $30.
That's why it's insane to me to come off Colonial Marines and then say, we're going to sell 2 million of another Alien game if it's good. Just like, don't. Put your fingers down.
Yeah.
And like that game is a slow burn. You know, it's like I just played Evil Within twice because it had New Game Plus. And like the beginning of Evil Within is kind of frustrating because it's like, no, I'm trying to set you up for scares, and it's like I already played this game. Come on, you're just trying to like run through it. And like I can just imagine like Call of Duty players being like, oh yeah, bro, did you play, that Alien game? Is that cool? I'm a shooter fan. Would I like it? And it's like I'm 2 hours in, and it's like, oh, has the alien killed you yet? Like, there's no alien in this game yet. Like 2 hours, 2 full hours.
Wait,
nothing.
is that for anybody, or is that just because you're really good at avoiding the
It takes
alien?
a long time for
see.
anything to happen in that game, which is like a
Cool.
super win if you think
Yes.
about it. Like in some circumstances, it's like, yes, that's fantastic. Like ultimately, like in the time I had to play games this year, I'm like, I'm just not going to make time for this game because I just feel like I'm flipping switches. I don't like what I'm doing. It's kind of like when you speed run a game later and you realize like, wow, like what am I doing? I'm just running around opening doors and whatever, it's like, and like I felt like I was doing that in the first playthrough of just like, I just don't,
But
So I think that was possibly a turnoff as far as like spreading that game out to the shooter community, to like really passing it off. Which again is all about expectations. It's like if you're taking this franchise and it's like, we're gonna do this real atmospheric, slow, extremely gorgeous kind of art house piece approach to it. Oh, it didn't get blockbuster numbers. It's like, that's not the game you made.
I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
yeah, but again, I think sometimes I feel like these kinds of things they're not looking at the big picture well enough, and I think the Colonial Marines had more of a knock-on effect on this than anything that this game in particular had to do.
Sure.
You know? Like if people got burned, they're not gonna just dump their money on the next one.
That's the weird thing is you don't feel the impact of that until a year later.
Yeah.
Yeah, or at least you have to take into account that that's something you need to overcome. I mean, this happens all over the place. Like I had that trouble with the Godzilla movie that released last year. Like you try to talk to somebody about this new one, they're like, well, the last one sucked, the Matthew Broderick one, and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Completely irrational argument to not go see the new movie.
No way. Who is this person you're talking to?
The moderator.
I said, no, I won't see this new Godzilla. The Matthew Broderick one sucks.
You mentioned
that.
that,
That is
yeah.
not a conversation we had.
You mentioned it.
Because I saw that Godzilla
No,
movie.
I know you did, yeah, but you overcame that, but most people didn't. And that's what bugs me a lot is because people just write that off because of the last installment, exactly what he's talking about. That's a human thing. We all do it instinctively to a certain extent. But I'm not saying we're to blame for poor sales numbers because selling 1 million copies of a game used to be pretty amazing. And for some people, they'd kill to sell that many.
Yeah.
But it's the amount of money they spent trying to get a $20 million sales.
I do want to talk about that amount of money because a very unique thing about Alien Isolation that I think is probably only Alien Isolation did that this year is how much effort it put into its pre-order DLC, which was the stuff with all the actors from Alien. Mm-hmm. 2 chapters of pre-order DLC. You get these free if you pre-order. We got all the likenesses from the actors of Alien. We got a man to do voiceover work. Here's half our trailers are gonna be talking about this pre-order DLC, and which they all ended up giving away for free. I think the intent originally was to do one as pre-order and then the other one you have to pay for. And then like in September of last year, they announced, no, you'll get both of them. Pre-order now, you get both these things for free. Clearly, I don't know why I'm asking this question. That was a mistake, right?
No, that was them testing the waters, and clearly the result is what we see. They didn't get enough pre-orders, and so they said, oh, crap, we need more pre-orders, because people are so impressed with pre-order numbers nowadays that somehow is a gauge of something
Yeah, but
for
like
developers and publishers.
if you look at what the order is doing right now, it's like 2 dumb costumes. This was huge.
I could see that being, huge, but at the same time I could see that organically happening so easily that like, okay, it's Ripley's daughter, and then it's like, what if you get Sigourney? How much is Sigourney? Get Sigourney on the phone. So like they call Sigourney and they're like, okay, and it's like, she's this much, and they're like, okay, well, we'll put that on the back table, and then it's like, well, we're getting more buy, and it's like, well, we're starting to get some ad dollars, like, yeah, this could be like a big deal. We might want to like package that in, like have her do the intro, have her do a couple of like extra scenes and stuff like that. That might be a nice kick. We'll get her in a couple trailers. We'll get her to talk about it, and like she could add some credence because we got to get the hell away from Colonial Marines, which she wasn't in, right? Michael Biehn was in that, and anybody else? Was Lance Henriksen in Colonial Marines?
I'm
not sure.
I knew they got a couple people for Colonial Marines, so it's like as much as we can separate from that, and then it's like, well, probably for as much or maybe even less than just getting Sigourney, we can get the rest of them. So let's just do that. I mean, with the exception of Ian Holm, I've always been really curious. I don't know if anybody figured out like what happened.
There's one cast member who's not in
The robot, yeah, like I think probably the most interesting, other than Sigourney, and I always forget their name, Dallas. Those would be the two people I want to play as. So I could just see that like kind of steamrolling and them just being like, let's do it, like, let's just get them all.
To me, I think that is probably a huge budget sink. I think that DLC alone was probably a huge chunk of the game's budget, and I don't think it would have sold that much worse without that DLC.
Right.
It did get us talking about it. You're right. It absolutely got headlines when it was like, "Hey, look at all these people."
No, that was one of those Huber. That was one of those Huber yells from like his cubicle where he's like, "Don't!" Like they'll send me an email. I'm like, "What's this?" Oh, like that was a huge deal. He was like, "Can you believe they're doing this?" And like I definitely and that was maybe one of the other problems too that like made it such a big mistake is that like what I imagined reminded me of when Nintendo showed Nintendo Land or whatever, and they're like, imagine a Nintendo theme park, and I was like, oh. And then they did a fireworks show, and I was like, not what I imagined. And this was like, imagine if we got all of these actors together. I was like, oh my god, you could basically replay the entire film from anyone, but it's like, no, like you just run down a hallway and search a couple items, and they all stand there, and they get a little dialogue. So easy. You get to what city does she live in? Chicago now? Okay. Call her agent. She goes into some recording studio in Chicago that she goes to all the time, records a little bit there, maybe does pickups later, done. Like you just sign off on your character's look, done.
I'm not giving away my character's look for cheap.
Well, nobody wants your character.
You touched on such a funny truth, by the way, about like how good a game about a Nintendo theme park could have been.
No, don't get me started.
Okay,
and I remember bringing that up with
on
Shane, and Shane was like, what's exciting about a Nintendo theme park?
That game could have been so good.
Yeah.
Oh, we should not get started on that.
An open world, like where you cross over? Oh my god.
DLC talk, our next headline is a very funny one to me. It's a headline that's been misreported a lot this week about Evolve's DLC and how much that's going to cost.
We should misreport it some more.
We should. Let's continue misreporting. It's going to be over $100. So what happened was, I don't know who did it first, whether it was GameSpot or Polygon. I found it at GameSpot, stating that the DLC for Evolve is going to cost over $136. So you buy everything individually, and then also buy the bundles in which you could have bought those individual. They just saw the numbers on the page and added them all together without realizing that those individual things can be bundled into bundles. And so if you really buy all the DLC in Evolve, it's $60. However, this headline spread. What I did was I Googled Evolve DLC and found it on like so many other sites reporting over $100. It was on Shack News, it was on PC World, it was on The Escapist, it was on a site called The Lazy Gamer.
Well.
Thanks. For those only listening, Brandon gave us a little
rim shot there.
Little rim shot. Thanks, Brandon. What if we had that sound effect?
Should add the ching.
Yeah.
We'll get a soundboard over here for the guest seat.
Ian, can we get a sound effect in there, please?
I don't know if it's in the budget.
Okay,
It's not in our budget. It's not in their budget.
No.
We gotta call Sigourney.
But outline, because we're not talking about the other monster, right?
Right. This is only including the aesthetic DLC. The other monster, you can't buy it. You can buy the season
Has anyone
pass.
ever added up all the Gears of War stupid skins? I mean, I just feel like these are
This is what I wanted to talk about.
pointless things that nobody's going to buy all of anyways.
Yeah. Is there like, are we just all hating on Evolve and that's why this headline spread so quickly? Is it the game in particular why, everything was misreported?
I think the problem is that we have gamers writing these articles and thirsty for something to write about, and then they think, oh, this headline will get a lot of clicks. I mean, come on, we all know that.
No, Matt, you nailed it. Yes.
That's part of my job, is to try to get clicks and write interesting things or whatever. Like, it's not a big surprise to anybody, but the fact checking just seems to not be part of it, right? How long did it take you to figure that out?
To figure what out?
That it's actually only $60.
It took. What's really funny is on GameSpot.
They have an update now, yeah.
They have an update. The headline has not changed, but if you look at like the top of the article, they put it up.
The headline, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Why do you suppose that is?
You're right, Matt Blair. Yeah.
Any broke, don't fix it.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like almost the real question here is why are we interested in stuff like this? Like,
No, I mean, Amiibo costs how much to get
15,
to get all of just this? Well, no, to get all of just the Smash Brothers Amiibo.
That is incalculable. It's going to be hundreds, I bet.
Right.
Yeah.
And that actually adds a competitive gameplay element to the game, and all this is purely cosmetic. It's a weird thing for me. I'm not going to say this is like my definitive stance on the topic, but like it is weird for me for like somebody to be like, hey, we also worked on all of this purely cosmetic stuff. We recognize that our game can possibly be repetitive, so like here's all this extra stuff that you can buy to add to it. People are like, extra stuff? What
Well,
the
I
hell,
mean,
man?
you're just money hungry.
What?
No, let's not pretend like there's a demand like for some of these things. If people
Bonus
are going to pay for it,
material.
Yeah, that should
Ooh,
have
I
been
got
in
an
the
Evolve
headlines.
t-shirts. Like
That
what?
should have been in the
What?
headlines was cosmetic DLC. Even if you're going to do $136 of DLC, it should say $136 of cosmetic. This is why DLC is a bad word, is because it means too many things.
Yeah.
When people saw $136 of DLC, it's like, they're taking stuff out of the game. The DLC itself is awful. It is really just slight changes in the way the weapons look and the way that the monster skins look. It's, nothing big, nothing interesting or cool.
I'm bummed that there's no funny monster skins.
Me too.
You can't have like a big fro or something.
Brandon, absolutely.
That'd be so rad.
There's nothing
It'll
like
come.
that.
It'll
Yeah.
come.
You think so?
Probably. I mean, because the thing is like this
start a
is
hashtag. It'll happen.
with
a leather
multiplayer
jacket on the
games.
Kraken
Like
would
this
be
is
so
the rule, not the exception. I mean, what freaking League of Legends and stuff, like they make all their money off of skins and.
Oh, yeah.
And people love that. It's
No
just
headline.
weird.
There's
it's
no
just,
headline for that.
Depending on what you do or what fans we are. It was like Destiny. It was like MMO fans were pissed, shooter fans were pissed, and they all had like weird crisscrossing expectations. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't issues with Destiny, but it's funny that like some company does something and is embraced for it, and another company does something but is known for something else. Everybody hates that. It's like that's not what I was expecting. It's like, but it's what other people are doing. Or it's like I said, it's extra stuff. Like, I don't know.
So, go ahead, Matt.
No, there are only so many people that have actually done this, and I have seen it before, and I respect them for doing it. But how many times have you seen somebody write a headline saying, "This is how much I've spent on World of Warcraft since launch," and the thumbnail could easily be a picture of them just being like, "Oh my god." Yeah. Like, they look back and think, "Well, did I waste my money?" They probably won't think that they wasted their money because they paid for something that
Especially
they
if
wanted.
it's been more.
Well, he might actually start thinking that he wasted his
He's
money.
starting to strategize on how to get all the amiibo. I'm afraid for him.
He's used the word amiibo hunter for the first time, and then I got excited.
Yeah.
Now I want to get in. You put hunter at the end, I'm in.
But that's the thing. I'm getting really sick and tired of people who establish, like they're part of the problem in establishing a demand for something that they don't want. Or at least they'll establish the demand acting like they want it, but then act later like they don't want it, thinking like it's part of the problem. There's a lot of bandwagon issues happening, and this is one of them.
Do you mean writers?
Writers, because they get a lot of attention, but it's also just people having conversations. If you hear somebody with a negative opinion, you might instinctively start sharing that negative opinion. It happens a lot.
No, that's
a
the
huge
internet.
problem.
That's Twitter. That's the internet.
It's
yeah,
a
exactly.
huge problem, specifically within gaming culture, and some people talk about it, other people just kind of deal with it, other people ride the coattails as much as they can. That's where these headlines come in. Mm-hmm. It bothers me a lot. I'm sure it bothers you guys too.
This week was the first week where I absolutely missed joystick really bad.
Yeah.
As I was looking for just news. As I was just looking for just news. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to find a site where I can just find news headlines. Like, if you go, when I went to Kotaku this morning, there was not one video game news headline. It was a lot of just like, I did this and this. Look at how funny this thing is. I think that it was like there was not one news headline, the whole front page. I don't know. If you know, if you in the comments, let us know what a good news video game website is where I can just look at what happened throughout the week.
GameTrailers inquires.
Yes, please let us know and we'll
Yeah.
share it.
Will works for news.
Maybe we can.
What?
In an ideal world, we would have never lost Wario 64. But anyways.
Oh yeah, we used to have
just
news.
follow him on Twitter.
GameTrailers used to have news.
Yes.
I do recommend following Wario64 on Twitter. That's
Yeah,
fun.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed that too. We used to do mostly just news.
Because one of the things, I think probably my favorite thing on Twitter is it's kind of like the Big Bang Theory. You can when something explodes in social media, you can go all the way back right to that point. Like right to that first person that was like, whoa, like this happened, you know, and like so it's interesting that we've done that with social, where we can just kind of like like break out the map, and it's always him. It's all you go all the way back, and like he's always one of first, and it's like and he's never some people are just so boisterous, all caps, freaking out, links, jokes, and he's always just like, oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah, just I imagine just like types a sentence with one slap of the hands onto the keyboard, just like pap, I typed a sentence.
Or he's like watching something else and just like idle hands, doesn't even know he's doing it.
Pretty cool guy. I don't want to give Evolve an easy pass. I'm still mad about one of its DLCs. This was a pre-order incentive, only on exclusive to Xbox One. Pre-order incentive exclusive to Xbox One because Xbox One apparently, I didn't even realize, this is because I was looking at all this other stuff. It had the only preload. The preload was exclusive to Xbox One. Yeah.
Wow. I wonder how much money they spent on that one.
So if you preloaded the game, on day one, you would have the third tier of hunters unlocked immediately.
Oh, I remember that.
Which is the game, right? Isn't the game grinding to unlock things?
Nah, because Ben had all that stuff.
A lot of the satisfaction comes from that, but then you get into that argument of like, would you rather own people immediately, or would you have the experience of progressing through this game? And
this is what we're talking about. Which are you?
Oh, I progress. The journey is always the best part for me. Because once you unlock everything, there is a huge drop in interest to go back and play that game. That's why some of these games start having that endless ceiling, right? League of Legends, perfect example. There's always a new hero to master.
Yeah.
Hundreds of them, probably thousands at this point. Right?
There's not thousands, but
yeah. So for me, I think with Evolve, I mean, it's a multiplayer game. I think a lot of it comes down to it's going to be obviously replayable if you are into the concept to begin with. I think the progression to me, it's not so much about choice and the satisfaction of unlocking that, although that is definitely just like with a fighting game, like when you see that Smash Brothers character pop up or whatever.
Love that.
Yeah,
I do love
that. I think the thing is it helps you keep from being overwhelmed with too many options. It's like you start off as like, okay, I've got one medic, I've got one support, and like let me learn how each of these classes work, and then I can get into, okay, now here's another medic, and how is it different than the first medic? Rather than you just start off and there's like, okay, there's 3 medics, which one do I want?
You pick tier 3. You're like, oh, I want the best one now, and then you have the more complicated character, I would assume.
In a weird way, it's like helpful to a reviewer as well. It's just kind of fun when a developer's like, see, we thought about this. You're like, see, start with this guy. Now learn this guy. And you're like, oh, cool, okay.
Yeah.
Like, that is more complex. And then it's like, the last person you fight or the end of the game, you unlock that character now. And he's really tough, because he's better than that first person.
So
but
Ben had everything unlocked for his
and-
review?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
The opposite of.
Okay.
He's saying the advantage of not unlocking is helpful to a reviewer.
Absolutely.
Because you get the experience the developers intended instead of just some marketing campaign.
Oh yeah. Anytime that there's like some full unlock, it just feels like total bullcrap. Yeah.
It is. It's not. It's an advantage to have those tier 3s unlocked immediately, but like you're ruining the game you just bought.
With the exception of Rock
straight
Band.
to 'em.
Yeah.
That makes
Because that was
sense.
smart. I remember like the first entry they did where they were like, go. Like if you want to do the campaign, that's separate, and you will unlock different stuff skins and different options and stuff. But
But you don't unlock songs anymore.
If you like buy it at the store, take it home, and want to party, you'll have more than 5 songs
I get that.
I think
Fighting
this is
games
without
do
spending money. Like
This
So-
might be a holdover from things like Call of Duty, where it doesn't matter what gun you... Well, it does matter, but it doesn't really matter what gun you have, because you're not progressing from gun to gun being like, oh, I'm learning all of my abilities going forward. It's just you use one gun or another. I mean, that's an easy one to be like, pre-order with us and you'll get this exclusive gun with the Tiger Stripe paint job or whatever. That
It's never the best gun, the one you can pre-order. Yeah.
Never the best one, and... So, yeah, maybe this is a huge mistake on the
I think
part
that
of
Borderlands 2 guns are like legitimately terrible.
Oh,
the ones
like
you
pre-order
got.
pack? Yeah.
Well, Assassin's Creed does it with weapons that don't matter.
Is that the right way to do it? Is just make sure the pre-order stuff isn't good? Is that? I mean, it's a serious question. Is that what they should do? Is just make them not the?
Well, they've been doing that. The question is, who makes that call?
Right.
Yeah.
Are they
Well,
trying
let's
to
pretend
avoid
it's us.
people
We're
being
making the
mad?
call.
Oh, Infamous Second Son, the pre-order mission was kind of like
What was it?
It was sort of a callback to previous Infamous games.
That's cool.
But it was just not good.
Oh, okay.
It was like the worst missions in the game were the pre-order ones.
I think you can make it like I always loved BlizzCon exclusives in like World of Warcraft. The people get mounts or like pets or something. And it was never anything that was like deal breaking. It was never anything that like, oh, that totally fits into the new expansion that just came out. But it was so obvious. It was so weird. Like it stuck out so much that like you could just, your eyes immediately went to like the person that had it. So like, I think if you have like a, if your thing is flamboyant or just kind of like out there, then I think that helps. Because it's like, you can wear that as a badge. It's like, yeah, no, I did this. I want them to know. Because it is just money.
Yeah.
So like it is, the same thing if you bought like really nice, really nice watch or really nice sunglasses or something. You're basically showing off that like I invested in this because I could.
Show your wealth.
And so,
Flaunt it. Okay. So going forward, that's how to do pre-orders. If you have the exclusive preload, just put, what was it, leather jacket for the Kraken? Just give us a leather jacket for the Kraken. That's all we're asking. Don't go crazy. Don't give us tier 3 stuff. That is a super good idea.
And shades and cigarettes rolled up in his white shirt.
The Kraken wears the hide of the Goliath.
So next segment's Water Cooler Ranch. This is a newer segment. This is only the second time we've done this. Topic around the office that I'd like to continue while on record. Not officially on record. What have we been doing? So I walked in Tuesday morning. Walked into work. This is Tuesday mornings when I shoot Final Bossman. And Ian is talking with Brandon. They're talking about something. I said, hey, I've got to shoot Final Bossman. I'm mad about Eurogamer. And then Brandon goes, oh, okay, yeah, we should talk about this. And we had a whole conversation. It was time for me to go shoot, but then me and Brandon talked about it for probably 5 minutes about Eurogamer removing review scores from its reviews. That's what was announced this week. Obviously, I attacked Eurogamer a lot. We probably shouldn't stick on the way that they went about removing review scores, because it's ridiculous. They didn't. They're still putting review scores on Google. Don't get me. I'm not
mad at Eurogamer
I'm
at all.
so mad at Eurogamer. I'm so mad.
There are so many different video game outlets. There's so many different people covering games.
Yeah.
Hats off if you do something different, or you want to have a different voice, or you want to have a different system.
Hats off, but stick to it. Don't just be like, well, we need the Google money, so we are putting scores there. Like, oh, fine.
I mean, it's a weird thing, but it's one thing to be kind of transparent and to want to change how you do things. It's another to like have these, like they had those sub headlines where like, scores don't work anymore.
Yes.
Right.
So you're just like throwing everybody else under the bus for why? Why are you gonna like?
Well, so okay, let's talk about that aspect. This is what I want to talk about. Our review scores. Do they work?
Yes.
Do they have value?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean.
I was hoping someone on this panel would say no. I was hoping for one no. So I'll be no. I'll be no then.
All right.
Good luck.
They're arbitrary. Review scores are arbitrary.
Really?
Yes, they're just a ridiculous number applied to a concept too complicated to just apply to a number.
I think scoring is arbitrary. I think sports are arbitrary. What do you think about that, Kyle? Let me put it out there. I think the only sports that maybe aren't arbitrary are like golf and the UFC. Sorry. If you win golf, you're awesome. There's nothing. You figured that out. Like that was you, dude.
Yep.
Like guy or gal. Like that's amazing that you pulled that off. But like once you bring in like we have an editorial team, you bring like a whole basketball team or football team or baseball team. It's like there's so many variables. Like there's no way at the end of the season that I'd be like like Patriots clearly the best. It's like no, they just won. Like they just won it. Things happened and they won, and that's why it's exciting to watch because I just want to see how this ends up. It's not like thank you, God spoke and said the Patriots were the best. So it's not like, yes, God spoke and said that Super Smash Brothers for Wii U is an 8.5. It's like, no, I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with that, but Mike Damiani said that. And Mike Damiani had the opinion. And if you know who Mike Damiani is, and you read that review, that score that he gave that is so critical to the whole message that he's doing with that video.
Why is it critical?
Because just like winning the Super Bowl, it's hard to come up with that score. Like it's hard to like actually solidify your thoughts. And so I can't help. This is as mean as I'll get on the topic, but like I can't help but look at people that are like, review scores as being like, okay, if it's too hot, get out of the kitchen. Like if you can't actually come up and be like, no, 8. Like I remember again, I don't want to throw Ben under the bus, but I remember having an issue with Ben, and we were talking about like 6.9s or just 0.9s in general, and he's like, I'd never give something that, and it's like. I have definitely thought of 0.9s. I don't know if I've ever actually given that score out, but I think it's a very specific thing. Like I want to see a developer it's like 7.9. It's like you couldn't give it an 8. Like no, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the point. really wanted it to. Oh man, it was so close to an 8, but it just wasn't. And you're going to have to listen to my review or watch my review to find out why. But I can't just like, no, it's all in the review. It's like, it's got to be that score. You have to have that there. And I think that applies to, I think that can apply to anything. Again, it can apply to theater, it can apply to film, or movies or music.
What about
film or
people?
movies.
What about people who are frustrated? I'll go to the blood. What about people who are frustrated that we don't even use the first 6 numbers of our 10-point scale?
Yeah, this is something I've addressed a lot, and we can go back to Sonic. I mean, we did, and the thing is you don't see.
What was the Sonic score? Sorry for the record.
It was a 3 something. I don't remember exactly what I gave it, but
Dead Rising, Dead Island.
Escape from Dead
Escape
Island.
from Dead Island, yeah.
Yeah, that was a pretty low one as well.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, a lot of the time you don't see those scores because those games are not worth us even putting the time into to get to that score.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah.
It's just like those are really bad games, and if you're going to review that, there has to be a reason. And I think Sonic was one of these, like, yeah, there was this potential that people are going to walk in and pick up this game sight unseen because Sega put it out there without any reviews, and it was like, no, you don't get to do that. We're going to review this freaking game because it's terrible, and people need to know it's terrible from every source they can get.
Right. If it's going to be that bad, people aren't going to know about it. It would be a sign of the industry being a failure in its own right if there were a lot of games under 5. If there were as many or more games under 5 than above, this whole industry would be pointless because it's just a ton of crap. So the law of averages puts everything up between 6 and 10 because people are spending money on it, and if somebody's going to spend money on it, that means it has to be worth spending money on in the first place.
And you have hundreds of talented people working together.
Exactly,
and
you have a lot of
sometimes they don't all come together or have the right vision or whatever, but there's still probably, there's good people in that group, which is like one of the things somebody was saying, like a job application like was requiring somebody to have been like worked on a game that got like a Metacritic of an 8 or above, and it's like, this is just blowing my mind. Like, you can't judge that single person's value on what a couple hundred other people did. Like, it's like that guy could be an amazing artist and he's got a crap director, over him, or a bad gameplay designer or level designer. You can't just go off of that.
Even Rotten Tomatoes will do like directors or actors. You know what I mean? It's absurd. At that point, maybe directors have probably the most control over a movie, but an actor doesn't. And neither does anyone on any of these teams over how good the game turns out in the end.
But I think maybe part of that played into Eurogamer's decision, because Eurogamer is one of those ones, right, that it's like, if Eurogamer gave it a 7, it's like a 9 from somebody else. It's like they're tougher and they're lower on their scale. So I think they felt the pressure that, like, okay, the way everybody else scores isn't the way that we score, and so let's not do this anymore.
I love that.
Yeah.
I like having differing opinions.
Exactly.
I like things shooting in the
It always depends on what voice you want to have with your website. Like, we have to come back to that understanding. Like, how one site views a score, like Brandon said, is not going to be the same way that another site views scoring. Like, some are 10-point scales, ours is 100 technically, because we do point one or whatever. But for us, when we write a reviews, that score at the end is just an extra part of the context, right? Like, we say what we want to say, and then that number explains, like, this is how we got to roughly this number, and it's kind of a complete image. That's kind of why I feel like we would never really get rid of those review scores.
We're in a pretty different case because I think a lot of written reviews are concerned that people only look at the scores. Mm-hmm. For us, I don't know how many people watch our reviews and just skip straight to the end. That would be absurd to me. Yeah, I think it's a little different. I mean, can you just understand the appeal to someone who thinks that people only look at the numbers? People want a world where people read the entire reviews and then they ingest all of that instead of just a number.
I would like a world where people didn't just read headlines, but were there.
Right, with $136, and for instance.
Exactly.
Sure.
And
yeah.
you read that and you're like, well, I don't have time to read the extra 2 paragraphs, but I'm going to go talk about this like I know what's going on to somebody else.
But I think that's all a factor. Like I wouldn't be angry at someone who's like, oh, I just look at numbers, and it's like you're doing it wrong. It's like, no, you're doing it your own way. Like that's the way you approach that thing. Well, like there's all sorts of parts of our jobs can be parsed out in different ways. When people decide to, that's like the planet we live on. Like we're all ants. Like we're all going to be, statistically, gobbled up in something, and it's. I think that's cool. The first thing I do when I go to Metacritic and I look up a game is I scroll all the way down and go, how low does this go? Like, what's the lowest score? And I'm reading that. It's like I want to read that guy go nuts.
Yeah.
And see if it's clearly like. Okay, my first. I was like, okay, well, this guy just doesn't like this genre or had a bad day
Do
or
this
whatever.
guy a little more. All I heard was okay, so I want to know what his deal is.
Well, clearly there's like bad grammar, like he's missing some commas in there. It's like all caps, It's like clearly this guy just doesn't, This is my first Civilization game, and what the hell? This is so slow, and what, You know what they should do is they should have a third person, You're okay. But those are fun to read.
Yeah.
And you just wouldn't, like, if it was 4 categories, like Eurogamer wants to do, then it's just like, it just makes it easier. It's just that's what's exciting about life, is that the 100 points at that scale to me is like the diversity of human existence. It's just fun to like figure out like where everybody landed. To me it gives 10 more meaning. If there's only 20 points on a scale versus 100 points, then it's like you got to surmount all those 100 points to get to that 10, to get to that perfect score.
Yeah.
It's 100 of those, a perfect 100 out of all of those 99 possible mess ups that you could have done, those little tiny chinks in the armor.
Yeah, and to me it's like, it's so important not for that number, whatever even its Metacritic average, to mean its value of what it is. If we're going back to the Patriots, yes, they had the higher score. They're not the best team in football. Pete Carroll made one little mistake.
Yeah. But that's what you're watching, to watch that mistake happen.
Yeah.
And we are saying earlier in this podcast that we felt Alien Isolation made a mistake. That's not a fact.
Yep.
Like Gamefront, who's one of our God love those guys that are not working at Gamefront anymore. Mm-hmm. But James Heaney came in and I was like, "What's your game of the year?" And he's like, "Oh, it's stuck between Mordor and Isolation." It's like, wow, 2 games that they're not even going to come up at all in our game of the year.
Not
contention.
nominated. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean anything. It just means something that's relevant to us at GameTrailers.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to make that comparison. Cool. Wonder what it's like to work in your office.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, and the other thing too is like what reviews have always been to me is as close of a message as I can ever possibly make to the developers of this game. I gave Disney Infinity 2.0, which I dearly love, an 8.0. That hurts. It's like, I wanted to score that game so high, but it's like, no, I have to tell these people, like, no, I'm scoring it less than your last game. I think it was not as good. I think you should improve for the next one.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm delivering that message. I want to hear. I'm getting up on a soapbox with a megaphone, and I want everyone at Disney Interactive to hear that. And so it's like, to me, if you make it just 4 points, if you make the whole process easier, in my opinion, then that message is not as clear. It doesn't stick out as much.
Right.
Like we wouldn't get those moments of like meeting again with these people at these events and having them be like, so you gave my game a 7. It's like, yeah, I did. I'm glad you received that message. So I'm glad you didn't just like, jumble up my words with everybody else's. It's like, no, that score. I'll never forget that score.
So sorry, to cap this off, Brandon, have you had that actual conversation? You've pitched it as a hypothetical a couple times. Have you actually talked to a person who you've given a score to?
Yeah.
What is that like?
It's tough. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, but it really humbles you. It really helps you and I've never been in that situation and been like, oh yeah, I feel real bad. It's like, no, I am so happy that we actually get to this point, because I can prove to you that I'm not that guy on Metacritic that, Civ, no, that's exactly what I'm not. It's like, I don't seek out these games to make fun of them. I'm not reviewing something below a 5 just to make fun of it. It's like, what, you pick Mary Kate and Ashley, go to the horse races off the, what are you expecting for the DS? You know what I mean? Like, those are those games.
Sure.
And so it's like, I'm not going to pick that up and be like, the problem with this, it's like, no, I want to talk about Evolve. I want to talk about The Order. I want to talk about these games that I could either, love dearly or
doesn't
have
that
a lot of
sound like
with.
Weird, underhanded slide against The Order? We don't have it yet. Just so people...
Oh, no, but it just...
But if people read things
the hot,
out of
the
nothing,
hot button games. Those games that I'm curious what opinions are. Monster Hunter. Guy tweeted at me and was like, "Where's that review? I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to see that score."
Oh man, you have to
everything.
be directly responsible for that. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Blood, have you met someone you've given a score to?
I don't have any stories off the top of my head.
Okay.
So I'm sure I have.
Just kind of like pull. Oh.
I mean, there are guys, there are guys that watch our show that that are developing their games right now, and they're very excited for when I review them. So
Yeah. What if a Sonic Boom developer listens to this show?
I think they know.
They know. That person
that
knows.
game they know. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a really quick yes or no and why. Will you buy a new 3DS XL? Brandon, yes or no and why?
No, I
Why?
bought a 3DS and I bought an XL, and I can't see there being any game where it's just like gotta have that analog nub. It's cool. I mean, it's definitely better.
Hey.
I would recommend.
That's
it
not
to
how
the
yes
right
or no and
consumer.
why works. You're doing too much justification.
Sorry, it's been a while. I've been gone for a week, so I forgot the rules.
Blood. Will you buy a new 3DS XL? Yes or no and why?
I'm sort of on the fence still, but I'm going to say no for now at least.
Why?
I just don't know that the upgrade is enough for how much I'm playing my 3DS right now. I'm still perfectly happy with my original 3DS.
Matt Blair, you buying a new 3DS XL? Why? Yes or no and why?
No,
Why?
because the nub doesn't add as much functionality and it's not as nice to use as a second stick. Period.
Wow.
Well, the first stick is not as good as a stick.
Period, 7.8.
But
I like the feel of the slide pad, but that nub doesn't move, right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's like a touchpad, but a nub. I get no tactile feedback.
A
feedback from
laptop,
it.
like the little nubs on it. Yeah, I guess we could
His
even
has got a
show it to
nub.
listeners.
Doesn't yours have a nub?
You know those little red nubs in the
Yeah,
middle of the
it's-
keyboard on
yeah.
the laptop?
It's
It's like
weird,
that.
man.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's weird.
It's
definitely weird.
It's a little bit like that, but it just doesn't feel quite right, and I don't feel like it's gonna substitute a second stick in any way. And there's maybe 4 or 5 games that take full advantage of the second stick.
yeah, I mean, I honestly, I haven't yet, but I want to actually sit down because I've messed around with it. I was like, oh yeah, the control works, but I haven't sat with the new 3DS and played a game for like an hour or 2 with it yet, and I want to do that really
like,
before I put any judgment on the nub or not.
People in the real world can't do that. We're doing too much on yes or no and why.
Yeah.
But like a real person in real life can't just spend an hour or 2 with a console and say, oh yeah, I like this, and then go buy it. That's what sucks. Is you really have to take the leap on that. I don't know.
The snubs are funny.
Those nubs are funny. That's where we should end that. Let's talk about last week's bet. No, first we'll talk about this week's bet. Here's our closing bet this week. Talking about 3DS XL, coming out, launching with 2 games. Majora's Mask, Monster Hunter Ultimate 4. By the way, you can play those on your old 3DS just as easily. But they do both use those funny nubs. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is what we're talking about. On Game FAQs, do you guys say Game Facts?
Yeah.
Everyone says Game Facts but me.
Yep.
I don't like making a Q a k.
Okay.
Okay, so Brandon's giving me a little round of applause for that. On Game Facts, feels wrong. There are currently 466 users who own Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, probably people who imported it or live in Japan. Anyway, regardless of that, what will this number be at this time next week? How many users on Game FAQs will own Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate? Blood, you may choose to go first or last.
Oh, I'll go first. I'm gonna go with 1,200.
Okay. Brandon.
800.
I'm going 1,500. Matt Blair.
1,337.
1,337. Is that elite? Is that what you did
Yes, that's what he did there.
there? Let me lock those in reluctantly.
It's a good Jeopardy play. Remember the first guy who did that on Jeopardy for back?
Really?
I had no idea. What
Was he
doing.
grinning? Did he grin the way Matt's grinning right now as he did elite?
I'm only grinning because you guys got it immediately.
Except for me,
I didn't
guess.
know what it was. I actually that's how I found out what that was.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, I don't get it.
Was the guy in Jeopardy proud of himself though?
For sure, and he was clear, like the youngest guy by far. So it was like 2 adults and this like kid in this suit.
Well, look what I did on TV. It did elite. Okay, let's talk about last week's bet. We bet how many tweets at 2K support would do after the launch of Evolve. 3 is the answer. Which it's
3.
what's 3. What's really funny
Jeez.
is that we're counting a retweet, and 2 of them aren't even their fault. 2 of them were just it's because PSN was down, and so they had to retweet out that PSN was down, and then again tweet out from their own account, hey, PSN's down, it's gonna be back up, just to let you know. And then the first one was about a guide. So basically Evolve kind of launched without a hitch. Good job, 2K support.
Yeah, but it feels like that's down from the week before.
Yeah, right, because they were mostly about like 2K basketball, yeah. But so yeah, 2K support had a pretty easy week. No, I mean, we didn't count responses. So I didn't even look at all the people they have to deal with, like, my Valve isn't working.
Maybe that's it. They were too busy responding to actually tweet anything.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, I'm the winner. I had 4. 4 was my bet. So that means that Super Seat has 2 points, Blood has 2 points, Brandon Jones have 1 point. I finally got a point in the new season. I have 1 point. Feels good, man. The video I would like to plug. If you win the bet, you get to plug a video. I'm going to plug GT Time. I've never plugged his own show. Basically what I mean by that is I'm always looking to make GT Time better. So watch the show and give me some feedback on it, and we'll make this a great podcast someday.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the description to this video.
Yes.
So that you can click on it.
Rewatch, yes.
Put a link to this video.
We should do that more, by the way, is put the actual link in the descriptions.
Do you give him the link?
I'd never given the link. That's
there
on
you
me.
go.
Site coding humor.
Okay, so, also, thank you for watching this week. Thanks for watching the show. Here's everybody's Twitter names. Matt Blair has promised to tweet more.
Yes, I've been tweeting more. I'm very proud.
What did it take?
I have no idea. I just started doing it.
Okay.
It happens. No, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
Every now and then, especially around events, I'll just
Sure.
I'm so into Twitter right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Your life is more exciting when you're at events.
That's true.
You're also waiting in more lines.
Yeah, a lot of downtime. And so if you're on Twitter, why don't you tweet some more? Your lives are interesting too. Everybody's life is
Everybody should
interesting in a weird
retweet the
way.
picture of Ben Moore's old lunch.
I wonder, Ian, can we do this? Can we spin the camera around to show Ben's soup bowl on the final Bossman
Is that
desk?
bad?
Yeah.
He claims it's Smosh.
So if you're just listening, it's not Smoshes.
There's no way that's Smoshes.
I watched him eat that soup.
I saw him put that soup on his desk.
Yeah. So and then
So was he streaming?
he pins it on Smosh? No, he was playing Dungeons and Dragons, brings in his little soup bowl as dungeon master, finishes his soup, and just puts it on my desk.
So we have filmed evidence of him eating that soup.
We don't. I think before we started recording, he put it away. So okay, we got a shot of that. Thank you very much, Ian. To listeners, just imagine a big white bowl of soup with a nice big round plate beneath it, a big silver spoon,
And a clear rim, like a bowl cut of crusty soup.
crusty yellow soup from Ben Moore.
Anyone that's producing D&D tabletop adventures art, please include the bowl now.
Oh yes.
That's such a good idea.
Yes.
Anytime you draw Ben, just like real serious.
As dungeon
Oh, I'm
master.
looking forward to that.
Okay, please come back next week. Thank you for watching, and thanks. That's it. Thanks. Thank you.
I love.